Welcome to New Broker, the podcast dedicated to providing insights and inspiration for building a new broking business.
Hello and welcome back to New Broker. I'm your host for today, Annie Kane. And today we're joined by a Victoria-based broker in the form of Katherine Looke, a broker who has covered a significant amount of ground in a relatively short window in the broking industry. Now, Katherine entered the industry about 18 months ago, bringing a foundational background in finance from her time as a sales rep at a major bank, but then moved to forge her career as a mortgage broker. But as a small business owner, both as a broker and as the founder of a handcrafted resin homewares brand, which I also want to pick her brain about, Katherine was increasingly interested in helping businesses grow and recently began offering commercial finance too. So in this episode of the New Broker podcast, we're finding out why Katherine made the transition into broking in the first place, how she's been building her business, and her decision to diversify into commercial lending early on to future-proof her business. Katherine, thanks for joining me. How are you going?
Hi, Annie. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm doing really well, thank you.
All right. Now, we met in Victoria during Better Business. You came along to the Better Business Summit, and I was pleased enough to be able to have a quick chat with you and find out what you were doing and learn all about your story so far in broking. And I was like, this is really interesting. I think loads of other people would also love to hear your story too, because it's not every day that resi brokers who are in their first couple of years look to diversify so quickly, but you have done. But let's take a step back and walk me through to the beginning. So walk me through how you became a broker and why you became a broker in the first place.
Yeah, most definitely. So I didn't have probably the normal process to becoming a broker from my previous history being in real estate, going into the bank and being a home loan specialist and then doing a little stint in the complaints department during the Royal Commission, which was very interesting. I really liked the corporate world. Thought I would try to pivot and try something new, and actually started to study to become a patient transport officer to work my way up to become a paramedic. But as life has it, it threw me a curveball, and I was actually in a car accident and I was hit by a truck. And I found myself in a position where I couldn't actually work full-time hours, couldn't work as the patient transport officer. It was the week I got my certificate. So pretty much within a very, very small time frame, I could no longer do what I was planning to do, which I'd spent 6 months trying to do. And I couldn't go back to the bank because I couldn't work full-time. And I now have chronic pain. So I had to really sit down and think of, well, what can I do that I'm going to love, that provides flexibility for me to do what I love, but to go to medical appointments and still work as hard as what I want to work at and achieve, a monetary value of what I want to achieve. And I came across brokering, and so did my certificate while I was on TAC, getting paid because I couldn't technically work at that time. And it was a now or never kind of thing. My husband really supported me, and we sat down and we're just like, okay, well, if it takes me 2 years or 3 years to start earning a good income, can we afford it? And, thanks to his support, and we did the numbers. And so I took the leap of faith. Like you mentioned, I have another small business on the side. So I knew the whole concept of running a small business, but being a broker was obviously very new and different for me, and took the leap and fell into brokering because it was, the right industry for me with the flexibility, and I haven't looked back.
Wow, I am so sorry you got hit by a truck. That sounds horrific. And I'm so sorry you still have chronic pain from it as well. I mean, that sounds, but you're still here. So silver linings, I suppose. Looking at on the optimistic side that you're still here, and thank goodness. But wow, what a story. I did not expect you to say that. I thought you were going to be like, I tried banking and broking was the thing. I was like, what? But wow.
Yeah.
So how can I, if you don't mind me asking, how long did it take you to kind of get through the rehab process where you could work? I mean, are you working full time now? Could you get back to full time work?
I'm not working full time as of yet. I'm still on TAC and going through the process. Um, After my car accident, I didn't like the thought of being a burden, not being able to work and just sitting on my butt all day. So I did kind of push myself to get back into it. It did take about 12 months or so. But I had to get, for TAC, I had to get a job. And so um, they helped me get a part-time role at, can you believe it, Light and Easy. And I sat there and I was like, this is as boring as anything, and I need something so much more challenging. I'm not going to work at Light and Easy for the rest of my life. And yeah, so brokering was it. I'm still working part-time, but I think also it helps because, like so many other brokers do it, they'll work until, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning and, whereas I can't. I physically can't. So I have to make the best amount of use of my time during the hours that I can work, to make sure that I'm still pacing myself and, not ruining physically all of the progress that I've made.
So if you don't mind me asking, what sort of things are you having to deal with?
Yeah, so just ongoing whiplash from the my neck and my back. It has caused me to have quite severe migraines. So I now get every 3 months Botox injections as well as steroids and nerve blockers through my face and head and neck and shoulders to keep the migraines at bay. But if I do push myself too far, then, the constant headaches and the pain can increase. And so then I can't work as many hours. So thankfully, I've found a really good mix of medications now to help keep the migraines and the neck pain at bay so I can live a normal life and work as many hours as I suppose I want to work.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that story. And I'm so sorry again that that was such a horrific accident. But as I say, we are lucky that we got you in broking. So again, silver linings. I'm assuming then when you came to actually setting up shop, that a lot of what you were looking for in an aggregator or in a brokerage to join was flexibility. Is that kind of one of the key things that you had on your list when you were looking to join an aggregator, or do you just kind of choose the first one and join them?
Well, I didn't even think of the aggregator at the start. I focused more on the mentor and the brokerage that I was going to become a part of. And during the initial research, I came across Mr. Mentor, reached out to them, chatted with Brett, who is amazing, and he then connected me to James Angus, who is the CEO of FinWeb. And I wanted to join FinWeb, and so I was like, well, whoever is the aggregator connected through you guys, I suppose that's who I'm going with. So it was a bit of a roundabout way of finding the aggregator because I cared more about who was going to mentor me than who I was going to aggregate through.
Yeah. So you used Mr. Mentor as your mentor and they kind of got you in touch with FinWeb. What did you want from your mentoring experience? Like, why were you so focused on that?
I'm definitely someone that likes to see people face to face, and I wanted a mentor that I could go in and see. Um, there were a lot, obviously, Purple Circle and a whole heap that were Australia wide, but I wanted someone in Melbourne, Victoria, and Cranbourne West, our office is 20 minutes away from me. So the ability to go into the office and speak to the other brokers that are working there, as well as James, to get the, support that I need, that was really important. And that probably was the winning reason as to why I chose to go through FinWeb, because of
There
the
we go.
support there.
And when you were like looking at, doing your Cert 4 and kind of going through the mentoring, obviously first 2 years, it's a requirement for brokers to be mentored. So you're still in that period, I think. You're still in your 2 year mark, still being mentored, I think.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
what was your kind of like the biggest learnings along the way? Like, did you find that the Cert 4, did you do a diploma as well, just Cert 4?
I'm doing the diploma at the
Now,
moment.
yeah.
Yeah, I signed up for both of them.
Did you find that the Cert 4 kind of gave you enough foundational knowledge to start broking, or do you think it's imperative to have a mentor as well if you're a new broker?
I personally think that having a mentor is a really great resource on top of the certificate, because it's like when you study anything, the difference from coursework and reading, pages and pages of information is completely different to when you're actually in the real world. And yes, I learned, about the policies in the bank, but actually how to speak with a client, contact the banks, build a relationship with a BDM. There's so much more involved than what you can learn from the certificate or the diploma that a mentor provides. And even though I was a banker at the time, it was NAB. I knew from the bank's eyes the process and gaining the information and the fact find and all that, but then navigating all of the lenders and even the private lenders as opposed to the big banks, and that's completely different landscape to what the certificate showed me and taught me. So yes, to answer your question, yeah, having a mentor, I believe, was a really smart decision. Even if I had the 2 years experience at the bank, I still would have gotten a mentor at the end of the day.
Yeah. Did you find then that your first few loans, you were just writing NAB loans because you knew the policy already?
I actually haven't written a loan with NAB yet to this
Wow.
day. I think one of the first lenders I went with was my state. The BDM was so helpful and amazing, and he's moved on now to a different lender. So I was sad to see him go from my state, but I've followed him along to the next one. But yeah, I haven't done one with NAB, CBA, or ANZ as of yet. So
Wow.
it just goes to show that, the other lenders that are out there that we have access to can be just as good of an option. And I think at the end of the day, they appreciate the business more because, with the big banks, they've got, the big names, everyone knows them. Whereas all the smaller lenders, they do rely on brokers, and they're so much more willing, I find, to build a really good relationship and really support you and your clients to get the right outcome and solution at the end of the day.
So are most of your loans so far going to non-majors or non-banks?
Non-main majors at
Yeah.
the moment.
Okay. Can you remember what your first loan that settled was, or your first loan that you wrote was?
Oh goodness! So it was actually a police officer. So it was a first home buyer. We started talking in October. So I got accredited in September of 24, and then started getting all the accreditations and doing all the fun stuff, setting up being a new broker, and got pre-approval. But their loan didn't settle until June last year. So it was really interesting spending so many months talking to one client to then get to settlement and then to still wait to get paid. It was a really good learning opportunity, but it was nice that I was able to, police officers, their incomes are stable, they're usually on good income, and I still remember him and his partner, and they were a lovely couple to be my first, not trial run, but first introduction into broking.
Can you, I mean, that's quite a while between when you first started talking to them and then actually settling. Was that because they couldn't find a property, or were there issues with the application? Like, I wonder what the delay was about.
They couldn't find a property that, and it's hard with all the interest rate changes and the property market. The longer you wait, the more expensive properties become. And, I think it's something a lot of first home buyers are struggling with, to beat out other people that have potentially larger deposits or bigger borrowing capacity so they can outbid them. So yeah, it was interesting trying to support them and not let them get so down in the dumps that they weren't able to win at auction and find a property, because a lot of people end up giving up, after, 3, 4 months. And, it was nice that they were still hopeful at the end of the day, and, super excited to when they finally were able to secure the right property that, for me, I was just like, oh, yes, good on ya. Like, we won.
Do you now, is that the kind of loans that you're specializing then at the moment, first home buyers?
I wouldn't say first home buyers. I personally, in the residential space, say that I specialize in emergency and essential service workers. So I primarily go towards the industry. So pretty much 80% of the residential loans that I write are police officers.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and that can range from first home buyers, refinancing. I've got a couple at the pro, yeah, sorry. Blah. I've got a couple of clients at the moment who have sold their houses to upsize as well. Um, so it's a mixture of everything, and mainly because like I said, I easily get bored and I like a challenge, and so focusing on an industry still allows me to have a variety of loans and scenarios in front of me instead of just focusing on, say, first home buyers.
Yeah. And do you, I mean, there are a couple of like lenders that specialize in policemen, for example. Like, do you use a lot of lenders that do that, or you kind of just being like wherever you need to go?
I do have a list of the ones that work better with police officers. There's a lot of lenders out there that work with Medico and not police. So it was definitely interesting coming into the industry and finding so many more lenders that weren't working with coppers and providing, say, lenders mortgage insurance waivers or taking 100% of their income and allowances. And, that surprised me. Primarily, though, I knew a lot already because my husband's a police officer. So, we had experience with Bank Vic and looking at other lenders as well. So when I speak with a lot of the coppers, I look at all lenders. I don't like to pigeonhole them into just one, because sometimes a lender that doesn't, say, specializes in police, the borrowing capacity might be bigger with them than with a lender that does, just because of their policies at the time and, the buffer and, so much comes into assessing a borrowing capacity and serviceability. So I do know the shortlisted lenders, but I look at the whole picture as well.
Yeah. And you mentioned there about kind of getting bored easily and wanting to try new things. And this brings me nicely to, I think, your diversification journey, because only less than 2 years in, you're already looking at commercial finance. So I wanted to talk about, how you've been doing that, why you've been doing that, because it's a big lot of meat to get into.
Yeah, I actually knew that I wanted to do commercial from day dot. As soon as I became a broker and I sat down with FinWeb, I said I want to do commercial lending. My parents are business owners. I've got my small little business on the side for the homewares, and also just going through COVID, it was so disheartening for me walking down my local stripper shops and so many of them having to close up shop because they couldn't stay open. And, even to this day, there's heaps of retailers that have had to go out of business. And so I just really wanted to support them. And it's so much more solution based in a way. Like there's so much flexibility within the commercial space than residential. It's you're looking at all of the five C's, and if one, their character isn't great, but they've got a really good deposit, then we're still good to go. Whereas residential, it's I suppose a lot more black and white. So I always wanted to get into the commercial space because of, the flexibility, bigger loans, more complex natures. And I like the complexity of some of the scenarios with the trusts or, self-managed super funds and things like that.
I'd love to pick your brain a little bit more about this, and we'll just take a quick break here and we'll delve into it further just after this message. So you were talking there, Katherine, about how you kind of have been doing loads of different types of loans and really wanting to diversify and knowing from the beginning that that's what you wanted to do. Is there anything that you're like now really seeing a lot of demand for, like in terms of commercial lending? Is it commercial property? Is it business loans? Is it SMSF, as you were kind of referencing there?
Well, I love SMSF, and I really hope to be able to do a few more of those this year. But at the moment, all of the loans are unsecured. Whether it's cash flow, I've got a cafe purchase at the moment, and it's unsecured. Overdrafts unsecured. So it's been really interesting navigating that space, when all lenders want at the moment is security. And all the clients that I'm helping in the commercial and business section is unsecured. So that's been really eye-opening and fun to look into.
Yeah. And is there any way that you're kind of actually finding these clients? Like, I know you're a small business owner in your own right. You've got your resin homewares business, which I had a little peruse on as well, which I also want to talk about in a bit. But are you kind of like, are you finding these clients in a particular way, or is it kind of references and referrals from your existing clients?
It's all from me going out. As soon as I became a broker, I started networking. I had never networked in my life, didn't know what it was. And I was listening to a broker podcast, and somebody said, referrals, they can make up 60% of your business. And I was just like, well, I don't know a single person apart from my parents in business. So I need to get out there. And that's probably been the best support network that I could have had, just being able to speak with other business owners and understand where they're finding their clients. But also I'm speaking to business owners every week while networking, and, being able to build trusted relationships with them that they then want to use me as their commercial broker or refer me to their clients as well, has been the best source of leads, because it's better quality leads because the business owners know me. They understand what I can do, how I help my clients. I understand them and their clients a lot more. So it's a nicer, source of referrals than me just cold calling a bunch of businesses off Google.
Yeah. Do you think having your own business, your resin business, do you think that your homewares business, do you think that actually helped you as well, like talk the talk and walk the walk?
I definitely think so. It made me feel comfortable, and like that I wasn't, completely new as a business owner. And I always talk to people, clients, other businesses. So I was a little bit more relaxed. You obviously, at the start, you've got to rip off the band-aid. You're always a little bit nervous when going into a new industry. But yeah, because I had so many years of talking with clients, it definitely helped smooth me into the process of customer service.
Yeah. And if anyone's interested in Katherine's resin business, I'm going to give you a little plug here. It's MLRH by Katherine Looke. And they're stunning, beautiful pieces. Little vases. Love that.
Thank you. It's a nice creative outlet.
Yeah. So you've been doing that the whole time you were broking as well?
Correct. Yes, since 2018.
Okay, so this now brings me to my next question, which is, well, how do you actually manage your workload and get through everything you need to do? If you've also got like another business on the side, so when you're not broking, you're obviously creating and working on your small business yourself. How do you manage the day-to-day work? And do you have any kind of support or staff to help you with it?
Yeah, so obviously one of the things that intrigued me or made me want to join FinWeb as well is the support that they have. We've got our own VAs to help with the loan processing. So that takes hours out of your day with each application. And when I've got multiple going at the same time, I know that the VAs are working on it in the background and things are still getting done, which has been amazing. I've recently also hired my own social media VA, so I don't have to worry about Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, like newsletters, blogs. I've got someone now to do that because that takes a lot of mental brain power, like even not just thinking about the time, just the planning and the management and all the fun stuff that comes with social media. So that's been very useful. But when it comes to my resin, it is also a hobby. So it's a creative outlet. Like I said, I find that it's fun. So I don't necessarily always think of it as work because even if I'm not making a custom order for a client, I'm still making something because I enjoy doing it so much. Um, so yeah, I do like blocking out my day. That's one thing. I am a massive calendar girl. If it's not in the calendar, it's not happening and I won't show up. So I've got now specific days that I will only do referral partner meetings, and I've got certain days that I will go into the office. Otherwise, I'm working from home. I've got certain days where I network on Fridays. So I plan out my week every week for both the resin as well as the brokering to make sure that it's spaced out evenly, that I'm not overdoing it and injuring myself or getting a flare up from my pain, but also that I'm getting work done as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you use any tools or tech to help you with that? Aside from obviously having the support in the forms of your VA, do you use any apps or software or AI to help you in your day to day?
Yeah, well, I've tried so much. There's so much AI and software out there. The noise is insane. And I've tried a couple of things. Open banking, I was using Frollo for a while, which was really great, but it was an extra step, like an extra email, doing the login details. So now I've really streamlined it that within LMG's My CRM, the fact find that or the hello pack that we send them, it's got the fact find, the credit card, the privacy policy, the link to the Ilion bank statements. The clients can upload their files. So it's just one email to the clients and that's it, instead of having to send multiple, which takes up time.
Yeah. And when you think about the commercial side of things as well, I mean, you mentioned about having a day with referral partners, for example, or working on that. Like, do you spend like time kind of fostering new referral partners? Is it more that you're kind of just building, cementing the relationships with your existing referral partners? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, it definitely is a skill, networking that I went hard at it when I first became a broker. I think I was going to 4 events a week. I was doing 20 individual business meetings in a fortnight, trying to meet everyone and anyone. And then it got to a point about mid last year that I realized I don't need to speak to that many people. Better quality relationships is so much more important than just meeting anyone and anyone that you're never going to hear from again.
Yeah.
So I now have a specific group of referral partners that I've gotten to know over the last year and a half, doing the networking, and I primarily now just catch up with them. It's about fostering that relationship, catching up once a month, getting to know how their business is going, how I can support them, and then they do the same for me in return. So we can really support each other, and it's not just throwing a client to a referral partner that you don't actually know if they're going to look after that client, because they're a reflection of my brand at the end of the day. So now I only use a certain amount because I know that they're going to look after my clients just how I would look after them. Because I want them to be supported holistically. And the last thing I would want is to refer a client to a partner who, treats them really poorly, and then they're
Yeah.
going to lose faith in me.
Yeah. Is there anything that you kind of think then, like in terms of your makeup, like do you reckon you write 50-50 resi commercial now? Is it still predominantly resi? Like I wonder how you kind of structure or, do you kind of just do it organically in terms of how much workload you have for each of the two different areas?
I don't like mentally sit there going, oh, I'm going to spend this much on residential and this much on commercial. I would probably say at the moment it's 60% resi, 40% commercial. And with the networking that I do each week, I am known as the commercial broker there solely because I'm trying to source more commercial leads. All of the residential ones, I don't have to put any effort into them because they do come from a community that I'm already engaged in with my husband. So I don't have to work as hard for those ones. So this year, hopefully, I'll be able to get it a lot more 50-50, which would be nice. So next year, I can then increase the commercial percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I'd like to talk to you about what you're doing to build your business, how you want it to grow, if you want it to grow at all, what sort of things you are looking at the industry. Like, what are the big challenges you face? What are the big opportunities that you're looking at, and your advice for new brokers too? And we'll get into that just after this message. So, Katherine, you were talking there about, the fact that you next year want to do 50-50 kind of commercial resi or aim to get there. What else have you kind of got on your timeline for maybe, let's say, the rest of 2026 and into 2027?
Yeah. So I like to do a lot of community involvement, and I've started doing financial literacy sessions at schools
Oh, cool.
within the Southeast. Yeah, it was interesting when I was speaking with a lot of first home buyers how little financial knowledge that they had. And I was like, well, it should be started in schools, year 8 to year 11. So last year I did it for a couple of VCAL year 11 students at
Mm.
a secondary college. Next month, I'm doing Haileybury College in Melbourne CBD for the year 8s. And over the next 6 months, I'm hoping to be able to get into 3 other public schools. Haileybury, I was a Haileybury student, so I know how much money and support they give for their students. So it would be nice to give back to the public system and help in those demographics that don't get the financial knowledge that others do. And I've also got a target that I would like to reach at the end of the year for how many loans I would like to settle. That was one really important thing for me. I didn't want to focus on the net settlement value and be like, oh, I want to do, 10 million this year, 20 million this year. I never wanted to be put into a position where I would feel like I'd want to push a client's borrowing capacity so they had a larger loan to be able to hit a certain number at the end of the year. So I focus only on the amount, the number of settlements I do, whether it's, a small $90,000 renovation or, it's a purchase or an upgrade. It doesn't matter for me. I'm happy helping anyone and everyone, no matter the loan size.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping to hit a couple of targets this year, but it's a nice variety of them, I think.
Yeah. And so when you think about the number that you're writing, did you do that based on because I want this is what's feasible for me, or are we kind of going because I think it's achievable? I wonder how you set those targets.
Well, I didn't really have targets or a business plan in year one. I have to admit it's something that I've learnt to actually sit down and work through. And at the start of this year, I was reflecting on last year, and I had set just a random fit like amount of settlements in my head for this year. And then when I looked back at year one, I'd done that many settlements in my first year, and I was like, oh, I'm doing better than what I was doing. So I was just like, okay, well, the amount of loans that I'm already doing within the first 6 months of this year means that I will double what I did in the first year. And so I was just like, well, if I can keep that trajectory, then I'll be able to hit a really good target for year five. And yeah, I seem to be on track, which is really nice. So it was kind of oh, I did better in my first year. Well, I have to up the ante and strive for a better settlement number this year.
Yeah. And it's always good to have something to aim for. Like, even if you don't make the targets, not saying you won't, but like, even if you don't make the target, it's always good to have something to work towards so that you've
Yeah.
got an idea in mind. Cause I think it can be easy to kind of maybe rest on your laurels a little bit and be like, oh, I'm doing great. Or conversely, be like, as you said, I didn't realize how good I was doing because I didn't
Yeah.
actually look at it. So kind of being like
Yeah.
having that plan, that number in mind is always good.
Mm.
I'm curious as well, like obviously being, relatively new in the industry, is there anything that surprised you along the way? Like, have you had any kind of moments where you were like, I didn't think this would be as challenging as it was, or anything that was different to what you thought it would be?
I suppose, it as a new broker, when I decided to be a broker, I understood the whole, commission, how we get paid, how long it may take, and the clawbacks and whatnot. And thankfully, touch wood, I haven't had a clawback as of yet. But it's definitely something that I've had to consider in my business plan. Like I sit there and I'm like, okay, these are all my expenses. These are all my overheads. This is how much technically I need to be bringing in. But then to have a percentage to cover any potential clawback as well. So of extra savings on top of what I'm making to make sure that I don't run out of money and I
Mm.
don't have a cash flow issue. Like I feel like it would be kind of silly if I'm doing cash flow lending for some of my business clients and I can't even manage my own. So I've that's definitely been an interesting thing for me to try to make sure that I'm considering throughout the year.
Yeah. Has there been anything then, like you kind of talked about like the challenges and the kind of things that you face along the way? And it sounds like so far it's been pretty good. Like you seem pretty optimistic. What's been the highlight so far?
Um, Probably being able to do the commercial loans. So, last year I settled my first commercial SMSF and it was a long process.
Mm.
We had great support from the accountant, and the lender was amazing, but there was obviously so many things that the BDMs and the lenders didn't tell me that, you would find out at like, oh, okay, well, I never got notified that you'd progressed to the next section. You never told me that you only give updates through your portal. So it was, okay, now I've got to constantly check the portal. And it was awesome to finally get to the end, for the accountant to get the office space. It was a whole family affair. There was five of them doing the purchase, and it was awesome getting to talk to like what other loan would you get to talk to five separate people on the one matter? Like, unless it was a huge corporate structure with multiple directors and whatnot. So that was really awesome for me to be able to do an SMSF within my first year of pretty much brokering and getting to help a whole family get it across the line as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's an interesting point you raised about, like, how the lenders communicate with brokers around SMSF loans. And I think this is something we talk about quite a bit because SMSF has been booming the last few years. So many lenders kind of either looking at pulling back or tightening up their process, or like, changing what they're doing, and not always communicating that immediately to the broking industry. Is there anything that you would give, like, a top tip to any broker who hasn't yet written an SMSF loan? Like, what advice would you give them? One thing you wish you knew before you started writing them?
Oh, probably I would say how much paperwork there is, because it was surprising. Yes, you need independent legal advice. For that one, every single family member had to do it. And
Mm.
at at the start, no one thought that it was going to take that long, but because each member needed to sign paperwork, see the lawyer in person, two of them went on holidays, so it was delayed for a month because we had to wait until they got back. And the cost then involved for each person to get individual legal advice as well. I would just recommend, make sure that you ask the lender all the questions for their process. They all do it differently. They all want different things signed. Their platforms are different, how you're going to get notified. Just also so you can let the clients know how long it may take,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
Because it's not like a normal settlement for a home loan. You choose, 30 days and you're all groovy. Like, we started at mid-year and we settled in December. So, it was a long process. It was great to be able to talk to the clients so much and build that relationship. And now I'm doing further lending for the accountant as well, which is amazing. But yeah, just knowing a lot more at the start of the process, so everyone knew what expectations there were. Probably would have made the first SMSF I did a lot smoother.
You talked earlier about, some of the hobbies you do outside of broking, so your resin work. Is there anything else that you do to manage your own well-being? And you mentioned as well about having to manage your pain levels. Is there anything you do to kind of manage that when you're feeling particularly stressed or when you've had a really hard day? Anything you do to unwind and de-stress?
I definitely use my husband in a good way. I'm not trying to be funny there. Because he's a copper, he is the best person I know at switching off. And when he's home, he is switched off. So, it's a lot easier. We'll sit down, we're a bit of a gamer, like we sit there gaming, whether it's PlayStation or on the, laptop playing Dota or whatnot. It's amazing that he's able to help bring me out of my work mindset. And, when you're at home, to switch off and, watch a pointless TV show and, not sit there scrolling on my emails. And then on the weekends, I go for hikes with some friends, pretty much every weekend, which is really amazing. And it's just nice to be able to be outdoors instead of being stuck in front of a computer screen. And even when I'm gaming, like getting away from the blue light and digital detox, I suppose. Yeah, really helps kind of manage the stress levels and, switch off mentally from the work.
Awesome. And if you could go back in time and start your journey all over again as a broker, what advice would you give yourself? What advice would you give a new broker just starting out?
Ooh. I suppose for anyone, like I did it well when I became a broker, but I've spoken to a lot of others that have wanted to be brokers and they weren't aware. Really making a financial decision that, if you become a broker, you've got the financial support to get you through the first 2 years. I think a lot of people think that the money is just going to start rolling in and the referrals are going to, be every week and But there's always the periods of when you're talking to the clients and then you're doing pre-approval and then you've got to wait for settlement and then you've got to wait until you get paid by the aggregator. You've got to have your finances there to support you. You don't need that as an extra stress on top of you running your business. And you know, I've had people reach out to me from the bank wanting to leave the bank and become a broker, and then them realizing that, oh, hang on, I might not actually make the salary that I'm making at the bank for a year or two. Like I don't have the savings there to be able to cover my general living expenses while I'm trying to start a business. So definitely sit down, make sure you've got the financial support there to be able to make that leap and that journey into the industry.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Katherine Looke from First Look Finance, love the name, by the way. Thank you so much for joining me today on New Broker, for sharing your story, and best of luck with all of your goals for FY26, FY27. And we hopefully will see you soon.
Thank you so much, Annie. I loved it. Take care.
If you've got any questions for me or for Katherine, do feel free to reach out. You can reach me at editor@theadvisor.com.au, and of course, Katherine Looke at First Look Finance. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer any questions you may have about her journey into broking. And if there's anything else that you heard in this podcast that you've got questions about, do feel free to reach out or leave a comment below. We'd love to see them. And of course, we'll catch you next time for another episode on the Advisor Podcast Network.